strength and hope for approximately 45 minutes. We ask out of respect for our speaker to please remain seated until he has finished. It is my pleasure to introduce the speaker for this meeting, which is Kirk.
Thanks. My name's Kirk. I'm an alcoholic. Live and sober by the grace of God and the loving program and the people of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'd like to say thank you to all you veterans. You're a lot braver than I am. Thanks for your service. When I got signed up to give this talk, it was at the VA, which is like ginormous, with like hundreds of people. And so I was planning on saying that. Anyway, well, I'd like to say that my story is based on a true story. Some of it's hard to remember, you know, it's a little blurry. And Alcoholics Anonymous being a program of honesty for liars. Anyway, I drank. My sobriety date is December 20th, 2015, which my sponsor constantly reminds me is 4 years, not 2 months till 5 years. Anyway, so when I was a kid, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and my mother wasn't married, and I kind of got raised by my grandparents. And my grandfather, such a cool guy. He came from Italy, and I think, was it 1903, I think, through Ellis Island, and he used to always tell me, you know, I ought to be selling shoes, And then they also would always tell me, Kirk, if you don't go to school, you're going to be a ditch digger the rest of your life. And I always thought that selling shoes was kind of like being a ditch digger, that you didn't want to do that. And my grandfather's brother turned 100 years old, and I went and saw him out in New York. And I found out something that I didn't know, is that my grandfather sold shoes to shoe stores. And he only quit doing that when they told him he couldn't drive up in this nice car he had, because the people were going out of the shoe store to look at the car, and he quit. And I also come to find out that he flew pylon racing airplanes in the 30s. It's like they go around, you know. Anyway, I come from a long line of alcoholics. I have a picture in my room. It's like my prized possession is a picture from 1934 of a couple of my relatives. They had a bar, Uncle Leo and Herman. And Herman is there, or Uncle Leo. They both have drinks in their hands, and this is before 1939. This is like 1934, before there was Alcoholics Anonymous. And it turns out that Uncle Leo died in AA, or I don't think he was one of the pioneers, but he did die sober. He was sober 20 years or so when he died, which was probably around 2010. Anyway, so I followed my grandfather around all the time, and every day he would say, "It's time for my medicine," and he would go make a highball, he called them, you know, bourbon and 7, and he would drink those, and I thought it was great, you know. TV, everything on TV was war movies and westerns, you know, and that's what men do. They walk into the bar and they have it, whiskey, you know, whiskey. And so I always thought that, you know, the measure of a man was how much he could drink. And so when I got older, I started drinking, and turned out I drank the same drink. I didn't really realize I was doing it, but I always drank bourbon and 7, and I called them highballs, and it was just normal. I thought that was, the way everyone did it, and then I became a carpenter in California, building houses, and that was it was required to drink. If you're in the carpentry business, building houses, drinking was pretty much required. I mean, you drank started around noon, after work, drank, and they said that the strategy that in the boss's mind was that if you drank after work, you would go home and go to sleep and show up for work the next day. So that's what I did, and I got married, and I was married 13 years, 1 month, and I met her in a bar. So when I came home one day and she wasn't there, and hey, Deborah. Deborah's on Zoom. All right. Well, I didn't think much of it, and when we first started going out, I was fun. We were fun. We did stuff. We went out to dinner. We went canoeing, dancing, all this fun stuff. And by the end of that 13 years, I was a mess. She would come home and I would be passed out drunk on the couch like I was every other night. And so it really came as a surprise to me when she left me and said it was because of my drinking. And, I said, I met you in a bar. What? You got to be kidding me. And I had heard of alcoholism, and I thought I knew what an alcoholic was. Was someone that was on Skid Row, with a bottle, or I don't know. But so I got her on the phone, and she says, I'm not coming back until you go to rehab. You got to go to rehab. I used to call them rehab. And I finally, after, I don't know, it was about a week, I finally said, okay, I'll go to rehab, but will you be there when I get out? She said, no. And so I showed her. I took my drinking to a new level. Drinking and used drugs too, drugs that I never thought I would ever use. It just came natural. I was just absolutely destroying myself. I mean, it says we're powerless over alcohol and our lives are unmanageable. What my sponsor likes to say is he thinks that they should have said, and my emotions are unmanageable. And, that was the thing. I just felt so hurt. I don't have words to describe the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization that I had. My wife left me. I had a daughter. We got married in Catholic church, for Christ's sakes. And I played the victim. I was such the victim. I would go into the bar and I would take out the pitchers and spread them out on the bar and say, whiskey, keep them coming. It's an emergency. And, pathetic, just pathetic. And so when I started using the hard drugs, if it wasn't for hard drugs, I'd probably still be just a drunk alcoholic. But the hard drugs got me circling the drain in such a grand fashion, so fast that, my family, they're reaching out to me, saying, my God, you're on drugs. You got to stop this. come to Arizona and, we'll help you, get off drugs. And I got there, and my dad's like, bourbon? And I'm like, yeah. And he he had Jack Daniels, and he had Coke there. And me and my dad both, we were shocked when they said he's got to stop drinking too. We were like, what? I never thought that I could live the way I am now today without drinking or taking a drug. I'm just okay, I can just be me. I spent my whole life saying, I need a drink, I need a drink, I need a drink. That was the goal of every day, was to get up, and go to work and make enough money to keep my drinking going. And so I've been, this is around 2002 when I came to Arizona. And I put some time together and went to jail a few times. I thought, my God, there's no police around here. Well, they actually seem to know who everybody is in Arizona, and it's easy to get put in jail. And I was put in jail, and at this point, my bail could have been $5. Nobody would get me out of jail. My bail was $500, and they let me sit in jail for 30 days. And I know a lot of people do a lot longer than 30 days, but 30 days it seemed like a sufficient period of time for you to get the hang of jail. Just about by the time I got used to it, then they let you out. Anyway, I took a hostage, got married again. Married an alcoholic, and one night, I think I don't even know the date we were married. I know we were married in Vegas, but I'm not really sure what year it was. I'm not really sure what month it was. I don't know. And it wasn't long till she said, "Hey, Kirk, I got to tell you something. I've been drinking these little airplane bottles of booze." And I said, "Well, if being alcoholic if being sober sucks so bad, I'll drink with you." And I drank with her. And the next thing you know, boom, I was in jail again. Like 2 days later, in jail. Innocent, of course, it was a big misunderstanding. And, all that stuff blew over, and I'd been in and out of AA for, a few years, definitely. It was more like 2009, she was gone. She left me and rolled her car between Sunset Point and Black Canyon City and broke her neck, her back, everything. And I was back to drinking, pretty hard. And that where they say, nothing worse than, once you've been in AA and then you go drinking, it's bad. It ruins your drinking. I recommend not calling people in AA to come pick you up at the bar when you're drunk. I did that, and they come and pick you up. And I went to meetings drunk. I went to meetings hungover, and I would ask the old timers, how can I just get 24 hours? I had years, and I can't even get 24 hours. And it was just in Sedona. I was in a noon meeting, and a guy comes out, and he sits on the tailgate with me, and I'm going, yep, all my problems. I had so many problems. And he said, well, sounds like you have a spiritual malady and a mental obsession. I'm like, oh, how did you know that? He says, how about I come over tomorrow and we'll go through the big book together. And I told him, I go, man, I got half a bottle of rum in my cupboard, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to drink it. And he says, no problem, drink it, drink it. And then the next day, he came over, and I lived in this beautiful place in Page Springs. It was 4 acres with no fence, and the yard just went all the way to Cottonwood. And we would read the big book, and then we would go on a hike, and then we would read the big book some more, and he would go home. And then the next day he'd come over, and we'd take turns reading the big book. We'd go for a hike, and we'd read some more, and then he would take me to a meeting. And that went on for a long time. And I finally did the steps, like it says in the book. He connected all the dots for me. It's like I'd read the book over and over and over, but I never had someone connect the dots to me. Like, it says we had to concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. I didn't even know what concede meant. I had to look it up in the dictionary, and it says to admit that something is true or correct after first denying it. And what that also means is that I have to be conceded that I'm the kind of alcoholic that there is no plan where I drink that doesn't end in complete disaster. And then the other thing is, and it's always going to be that way. That's the thing they say about men have lost their legs, they never grow new ones. That means it's always going to be that way. And invariably, after every period of sobriety, I got a year. Okay, now I can drink. Right in jail. The persistence of the illusion is astonishing. It sure is. And I don't know what happened, but, well, I know it happened. I went back to drinking. So I was getting sober. Rich is coming over every day, and we're doing the steps. And he says, now, Kirk, don't you prey on these women in AA, because it's life or death for them. Why don't you go on Match.com? That's what we do in New York. And I'm like, really? And I got on these, internet dating sites, and this is how I got over to Prescott, really. I met a girl on there, and she lived in Chino Valley, and I drove out there, and then it snowed, and she was so gorgeous, and I was just out of my mind. And she says, are you sober? And I go, yeah, I'm sober. She says, oh, so am I. 4 days. And I'm like, oh, that's so great. That's so great, And then she, about a week later, she has me meet her parents. And her mother says, are you sober? And I go, yeah, I'm sober. 10 months, something like that. And I go, yeah, and she's got a week. And she says, she's only sober because she was in the hospital for alcohol poisoning. And shoot. So I found the sickest alcoholic woman in Yavapai County. And stuff started happening, like she was drinking, vodka and Coke. Gross. And I never saw drinking like this before. I mean, she would get the biggest glass she found, go over to the refrigerator, and go chink, 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 get the ice. And then she'd put all this booze in there, and she would drink it, and the ice would melt, and then she would save that and put that in like a 2-liter bottle and make a new one. And I was like, you're killing me here. You get a regular glass, you put ice in there, you put it until the ice floats, put a shot of mixer in there, and that's how it's done. Anyway, what was happening was I was drinking Coke, just plain, right? And our glasses would get mixed up. And I would take a drink, and I'd go, oh, my God. Yeah, and I would call my sponsor, oh, fuck, I took a drink, and, and he would say, well, that's okay, because you didn't have the mental obsession. It was an accident. That didn't count. Don't drink anymore. And then one time, I was drinking Gatorade, and there was some deal with, I don't know, a parent's flat tire or something, and I had this Gatorade, and I took a drink, and it had vodka in it. I'm like, oh my God! I thought I don't know what I thought, but then the next one I grabbed, I got them switched, right? They both had vodka in there. I'm drinking that other one down, I couldn't get it the taste out of my mouth, and I was drunk, and that didn't go good. And I ended up, after like 3 years of just chaos, I don't know. I've been married twice, and the coolest thing is they had always said to me, Kurt, you'll spend a whole year by yourself, and you're going to learn to like yourself, and and then find somebody. And I was like, well, that doesn't apply to me. That's not in the big book. And anyway, that's one of the coolest things that I have now, is that I live alone, and I like it. I like not having a girlfriend. I never thought it would be so great, but I like it. And I'm working on myself, trying to anyway. Gained about 15 pounds. I don't know if anybody else has gained weight with all this lockdown stuff. So I think like, oh, I'm going to go hike downtown and back, and because if there was a girl that was a little overweight and she went and was walking, I would like that. So I start doing the things, like I'm trying to become the girl I would be attracted to. I don't know. Probably dreaming. But so I got in trouble down. I left her and I went down to Tucson, and I got in so much trouble down in Tucson, just like beyond belief trouble in Tucson, like getting caught with tens of pounds of marijuana at the border, and being arrested by Homeland Security and in a little cell, and I said a prayer. I go, okay, so this is what you've been preparing me for, is spend the rest of my life in prison, which is what I thought that would be the penalty for it. And it just seemed like I said the prayer, and then they said, okay, you can go. And I couldn't believe it. That was a burning bush experience like I just couldn't believe. Sure, they had a couple of questions that they wanted me to answer, and I did, but they just let me go. They said, we suggest you go north. And just tell them, if you see any of those people, tell them that we let you go because we couldn't take you being such a heroin addict, So anyway, I ended up at Community Bridges. I don't know if anybody's been to Community Bridges. That is a nice place. That is really. I had lost my truck. So I got my contractor's license back on, big shot in Sedona, and get married again and all this. And I got drunk. She got smart and left me. And I come over here for a while. And I had nothing. I was at Community Bridges I had like a little sack with like maybe one change of clothes, and I had this old cell phone, and it rings. And it's her here in Chino Valley. And this is like a couple of years after I left her. She's like, hey, come see me, you know. I'm like, I can't. I don't have a truck. It's against the rules. Let me call you back. And all the guys, I mean, this is the dead of summer. I mean, it was like 120 degrees down there. And the guys go, that girl called you? I'm like, yeah. She wants you to go see her? I'm like, yeah. It's against the rules. And, you know, and they go, dude, if anyone anywhere wanted us, we would go. Go! Hitchhike. I'm like, really? Yeah, hitchhike. So I'm like, I must have looked so bad. And I'm trying to hitchhike from Phoenix up to Prescott, you know, and nobody's picking me up. And I got this little sign, you know, Prescott, nothing. And so I had these bus tokens. They gave me these bus tokens. And so I got the idea. I took a bus to the most northest spot in Phoenix. And I thought that maybe I would do better there. And sure enough, I got a ride, boom, to Anthem. Boom, I got another ride all the way to the Circle K up there. And then a guy took me right to her house. So I guess I'm supposed to be here. And I tell you, that didn't last very long. A few days, and I was like a handyman, and I had some customers that lived here in Prescott, and I go walking up their driveway, you know, and they're like, the guy's out there like watering the lawn, and he goes, Kurt, what are you doing here? I'm like, maybe you could help me get into a halfway house or something in Prescott. And they said, yeah, we could do that, but you look really sleepy. Why don't you sleep for a couple days in our guest room? And I did that, and I got in at Church on the Street there. That's an interesting place. And at this point, I knew that I needed to stop drinking, and I had charges too. I had some charges. I picked up some charges, drug charges, and after that, I went to Prescott Sober Living. What happened was I was pushing a bicycle drunk down Whiskey Row, and a guy comes out of the bird cage and says, I'm playing guitar in there in 15 minutes. And I says, so what? He says, I'm on vacation. I'm like, I don't get it. And I said, well, you bring your guitar on vacation? They go, no, I'm borrowing theirs. And I went, oh, whoa. So I went and I got on the list there, and I got up at the birdcage and I sung some Heartbroken Hillbilly stuff, and they liked it. And a guy says, why don't you come with me down the street? We'll shoot some pool. I'm like, okay. And he's buying. I'm living in the bushes. He goes, where are you staying? He goes, where are you staying? I go, in the bushes. I'm staying in the bushes. And he says, you're with me. And I go to his house, and I didn't drink. And then I called Prescott Sober Living, and they let me come in on like a scholarship. I ended up paying them for the month I was there. And boy, I wish I could say I didn't drink after that, but yeah, I drank after that. I was there for a month, and you know, I could take a shower, and you know, I got a job, and I rented a room from a guy. The day I left, the Prescott Sober Living guys came in, and they like tackled this guy. It took an ounce of heroin and a gun from him, and I was there when I left out of there. I mean, that was the day that I left. That was my last day there, so that was a good thing. And I got an apartment downtown, and I was on probation, and I was drinking when I thought I could get away with it. And I thought I just had it made. You know, I lived downtown. I could walk to Whiskey Row. I could walk back. I got no nag wife, girlfriend. I thought I had it made, and I opened the door like one too many times with a beer in my hand, and it was probation. And they said, you are going to see a judge this time. And that scared the shit out of me. And I called the guy that I had met in AA around here. And actually, I met him in school. And he's a good friend of mine now. He's got 10 years now. He had 5 when he was giving me a ride to class because my car wouldn't make it. I had a pretty rotten car, alcoholic car. And he says, hey, go to this meeting, get a sponsor. And I said, okay, and I went to the meeting. He told me which one to go to. Afterwards meeting. And an old guy there asked me, he said, let me take you to a meeting tomorrow at noon. And we went to a meeting at noon. And that was, I haven't drank since. And December 2020, December 20th, God willing, I'll have 5 years in a row, weekends, holidays, nights. And a funny thing happened to me, I've been in AA a long time, and people are always saying this happy horse shit, like, God's got better plans for you, or, your life is going to be way different than you think, And when I was in that jail cell, I was just thinking that the best I could do was maybe somehow find a way to kind of enjoy prison a little bit. And it's been so much better than that. I had a little apartment downtown, and so I'm talking to this old guy from afterwards, and he goes, and I'm telling him, about all this drug stuff, and he's like, oh, I don't know if you can help me. And I'm like, I don't think you can. And so I called my old sponsor up, and it turned out that he had been taking a meeting to Prescott once a week for 5 years at Chapter 5, a big book study. And it was like 2 blocks from my apartment. I called him up, hadn't talked to him in several years, and he goes, you have a spiritual malady and a mental obsession. I'm going to be in Prescott at 4. And if you know where Chapter 5 is, it's right on. And I went there, and he started sponsoring me again. I did an inventory, and what we did was that they were tired of the Chapter 5 anyway, so we started another meeting at Anchorage. And so once a week for 2 years, he would come and we would go through the book, just like he did at the porch with me at the halfway house. And it was about an hour and a half every single week. But we would just go from the doctor's opinion, the first 105 pages, just to the end of working with others, the forwards through working with others. So we don't need any of that the Al-Anon chapters. And I don't know, people like to make jokes about Al-Anon, but I know it's helped a lot of people. I'm just kidding. I don't mean to diss Al-Anon. But right before my wife left me that first time, she was listening to a lady that was in Al-Anon, so I might have a little unresolved resentment about that. But like my whole life, I was always in such fear. I had such anxiety and fear. When I was first married, I was married 13 years, 1 month. Who's counting? And I had all these guns. And before that, I joined this karate school. So I'm building these houses. I'm going to karate school 3 nights a week. And for years, and drinking, like I wouldn't drink. My plan was like I couldn't stop drinking. I go, if I join that karate school, I'm not going to drink because they'll beat the hell out of me. So I started doing it, and all it did was postpone my drinking till after karate, like 11 o'clock at night. But I was in so much fear, and that's one of the coolest things that I learned in AA is not being in fear. What would be a better way? We trusted reliance on God. What a concept! No one ever had ever said anything. No one ever said that to me. Trust and rely on God. Now I'm a felon, so I can't have a gun, and it's like a good thing. I'm not walking around in fear anymore. I fear, well, if there's some problem with a gun, I don't know. I'll just take it from them, or I'll hide from under it. I'm going to do something, but I'm going to be moving. I'm not going to stand there and get shot, but I don't worry about it. When I had a wife and a daughter, I went nowhere without a gun. Just on the off chance that it might come in handy. And that's one of the things I've found in AA, complete freedom. And so I have this apartment downtown, and I've been living there, and I'm getting sober. And the landlord comes and he says, I'm going to raise your rent on September, $200 in September, $200 in October, and another $200 in December. And I was like, shit, Merry Christmas, And I called this girl to get a date, and I was thinking that the best I could possibly do was like rent another room from somebody in some other shitty apartment downtown. And I ended up taking over that apartment. He got off parole, and I became the shot caller, as the guy called it. He called me up. How do you like the shot caller's room, Kurt? I'm like, that's pretty good. So I'm thinking I'm gonna get another shitty apartment, and I call this girl, and I'm like, yeah, how about a date? She says, I want you to call this lady. And she knew I'd been sober, and I called the lady, and I was 3 years sober 3 years, and she has me come over there and meet with her, and I started going to school. Since all this time, I got my associate's degree from Yavapai College, and I'm still taking courses. Almost got the bachelor's degree in psychology. I don't know why. My brother's a psychologist. I don't know. And I'm just finding out, like, most of the psychologist stuff they tell you to do is exactly like we do in AA. They call it like catastrophizing. I'm like, that's awfulizing. They're like, what? And they do mind reading. And I'm like, oh yeah, we do. That's just like AA, thinking disturbance. Because that's a problem. The problem centers in my mind. I have a thinking problem. I don't think normal. And that's where the sponsor comes in. I'll get to that. Let me finish about the call the lady. So I call the lady, and she wants me to be a halfway house manager. And she gives me the keys to this custom home right at the base of Thumb Butte. I mean, this is like granite countertops, stainless steel. I couldn't believe it. Just washer and dryer, high-speed cable internet. I mean, for a college student, it was really good. And there was no one there but me for 3 weeks, and I'm convinced that I am screwed. I'm like, oh, this is bad. My apartment was crap, but it was my apartment. I liked it. And someone told me alcoholics don't want to get out of their own shit because it's warm. Oh, is that on TV? Anyway, so I'm looking around, and I'm like, this is what they're talking about. That God is doing for you what you can't do for yourself. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get my head around it. And for 3 weeks, it was just me. And then, a nonstop parade of knuckleheads that I try and help. And Then they had me move over to another place, even better. You know, garage door opener, big house, granite, stainless steel, all this stuff. And I've been working for this lady now. About in September it was 2 years, but now I live in $1 million house. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's on the top of a hill. It is ginormous. It's got this kitchen. It's everything is stainless steel, and, you know, and the view. And I'm just like, I was looking around last night, and I'm like, this math doesn't work. How can I be living in this house? It's the third one now, and you know, it just seems like now my path is just unfolded in front of me, where my whole life I was trying to, you know, I was trying to get an angle. You know, I was always up to no good. You know, trying to control and you know, I didn't trust and reliance on God. Hell no. They said, you know, you're supposed to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make something of yourself. And so I thought that meant, you know, drinking all the time. Yeah, it was like my emotions. I couldn't control my emotions, you know. I was a prey of misery and depression. I couldn't seem to make a living. I wasn't of any help to anyone. And now I'm really living just such a cool life. And so I've been really big in AA, you know, except for now it's been kind of weird. But we kept the Rarely group going. Patrick got me a job at the Rarely group like 4 years ago. I'm still sober. Every Wednesday I'm back in there doing the recording, and I was in Dallas, and I had this recording of this guy, Otto M, and I just love this recording. And they said he's from Plano, and I was in Plano, Texas, at an AA meeting, and I'm like, do any of you guys know this guy, Otto? And they go, hell yeah. He's one of the founders of this meeting, but he moved to Arkansas. You want his phone number? And I'm like, yeah, I got his phone number, but I didn't really have anything to say to him. And then I got the idea that we could put the AA talks on YouTube. And that way, because nobody's got the CD player anymore. New cars don't have CD players. I don't know. And so I started a YouTube channel, and I called him on the phone and asked him if I could put it on the Rarely Group YouTube channel. And he said yeah. And what a thrill. And so now I'm thinking, now I can call all my AA heroes, and because I got something to say to them. Can I put your talk on the Rarely Group YouTube channel? And that's the one thing I forgot to say when Mike gave me, one day Mike says to me, I want you to call Clancy. Here's his number. Take down this number. Tell him your name is Kirk Leach and Mike Bennett is your sponsor, and you just want to thank him for all those great talks he did. And I was like, I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe this. I called him. He answered. I don't know sure what I said, but it went okay. It went okay. And so that's something that I could say that, you know, not a lot of people can say that they've actually called Clancy and he picked up. I don't know. Thank you all for staying here. I don't know if I crossed all my T's. Probably not. But if you're new here and you don't have any hope, you can borrow our hope. There are no unbeatable odds. You could get this thing. Just don't drink. One day at a time. Come in. Sit all the way down. Get to know us. And it won't be long. You'll be not drinking and happy that you're not drinking. I never thought that would happen for me, but I've found a way of living that's just way better than anything I could have thought of. Thank you.
let's give Kirk another hand.